let's talk about British Steel, and let's go straight over to my next guest. He'll be with me until 8 o'clock. It's always a pleasure to welcome him to the show. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kilsley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you.
Always a pleasure, mate. Now, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about what I would suggest on Saturday was the preposterous theatre of Starmer's deliberately dramatic emergency Saturday House of Commons session. Now, the subtext of this emergency session, the government knew about it. Everybody knew that the Chinese-owned British Steel company was going down the pan, mainly because of Ed Miliband's mad net zero policies. We've known for months, certainly weeks, that the furnaces in Scunthorpe were at great danger of closing down. Once you close steel furnaces down, they're very hard to restart. The government's gone into emergency mode, has effectively nationalised them now, with the Chinese hanging on by their fingernails. This is the company called Jingye. Now, the point is, the government's been, these Jingye bad actors, you know, they weren't genuine during our discussions and they've deliberately run this down and so on and so forth. Well, what has happened actually, Philip, is this, that Jingye, now I would agree that perhaps Boris Johnson and his Tory gang should have been a bit more circumspect about allowing the Chinese to buy British steel, but they weren't. But here we are, what is it now, 4 or 5 years on, and guess what? Jingye has decided that because of Ed Miliband's new policies, in which he has closed down every single coal mine in this country, and that they now have to ship in coal and coke from the Far East, as opposed from a coal mine just down the road, that Jingye, the Labour go, these terrible Chinese people, they've let us down, they've been disingenuous. Well, Ed Miliband's net zero policies have landed Jingye, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, by the way. They've landed them with a £700,000 a day deficit. They're losing 700 grand a day, having to ship in coke from the Far East because Ed Miliband closed down all the coal mines. So can you blame the Chinese for saying, you know what, we're not going to play this anymore, we're out of here? Can you blame them? It's Ed Miliband and this gormless Green government's fault, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so appalling on so many levels. I mean, probably like you, if you were on social media on Saturday, all of a sudden, all you could see were selfies of Labour MPs on trains going to Westminster saying, look, I'm working on a Saturday. It's amazing, isn't it? Oh, and by the way, I'm a patriot.
Yeah.
Okay,
we're off to London to save British Steel. You got it in trouble in the first place, you idiot.
So there was... And they were saying, oh, my God, we're patriots as well. So there was something about being terrified of Nigel Farage, Richard Tyson reform as well, because they were pushing the agenda on this. So that's one thing. It was all politics. It wasn't any of the whole kind of thing, oh, we're saving British steel. And as you correctly say, we're in a position where China, Red China, are in charge of our steel industry, okay? And there's a potential that it could have, our only steel making plant would be going over to Red China. It's utterly insane, and it's all about net zero. What we're in a position now that is essentially they're just going to be saying, well, enough about net zero. Let's put it away, because they're committed to growth, right? And if you are committed to growth, you can't be committed to environmentalism. It's one or the other. It's not both, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm concerned about here is they're just going to push this to the side. They're just going to forget about it. You know, like they've forgotten about pronouns and trans and all of that embarrassing stuff. Let's just forget about it. We were never really that connected to it anyway. But what about what's been happening to, like, a couple of generations of children now who are obsessed and terrified of global boiling. Is global boiling going to go back down to global warming now, and we're just going to get rid of it? What about those poor kids who are indoctrinated into the green agenda? What about all of the money we've spent? I've got it written down here, Kev. Climate Change and Sustainable Energy Act 2006. We've had to pay for renewables subsidies for all of that time. That's why our bills are so huge. That's why we pay the most in Europe, and it's because of this indoctrination. It's because of this cultish behaviour, and they're just going to quietly let it go because all of a sudden they're into growth, they're into steel. And what about all of the, it's not just them, but what about the cities like Sheffield, for example? Talking about Scunthorpe here, but as I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s, it was Sheffield. Now, it's not down to them. It's been deindustrialisation for years and years and years. But this whole agenda has been so detrimental to us, and we now have no heavy industry. We've got one place in Scunthorpe, for God's sake.
They should have been a little bit more circumspect back in last September when they just let the Port Talbot plant die because they said, it's decrepit and we can never get it up to speed when it comes to our net zero carbon emission ambitions. Therefore, we'll just let that fade. What they didn't realise what they hadn't noticed was there was a new crisis brewing in the north, as in Scunthorpe. As I say, they are expecting the Chinese owners. You can argue to blue in the teeth that, we should never have sold it to the Chinese. I would agree with that, but we're lumbered with that. Now, our government, until this weekend, was expecting the Chinese owners, Yingye, to carry on losing 700 grand a day because Ed Miliband had closed all the local coal mines down, and now they have to ship in the coke required to make steel from the Far East, from Japan, places like that. And so much so that now they're going to have to carry on doing that. They're talking about bringing in the Navy to make sure these convoys are safe, so the expense continues to soar. And yes, this emergency legislation at the weekend kept the furnaces going, and the government will continue to fund this industry, basically nationalise it. It's good that jobs have been saved, but now our government, on behalf of the taxpayers, is going to run British Steel at Scunthorpe at a massive loss. Jonathan Reynolds admitted this. We are going to lose money. So that's where we're at, and that is all down to this net zero mania. It's all down to Ed Miliband and his deranged climate change zealotry that the government's adopted. This is what's happened. We are at this point because of our government is gormlessly green.
It is. If you adopt these green policies, you've got to prepare for catastrophe, and of course we don't do that because when you're blinded by utopianism, that doesn't work. But you also think that other people are blinded by utopianism. I've got news for you: the Chinese aren't. Right? The Chinese aren't.
No, they're not.
They're hard communists. But just to get back, Kev, you made that really good point about Port Talbot. 2,800 jobs there gone. 2,800 jobs there gone. That went because politics wasn't as involved. Politics is massively involved now. They're fighting reform, and reformer on their tail. It's Scunthorpe, for God's sake. Okay, so it's all about politics. Their hearts are absolutely green. Nothing's changed. Okay, they're still the same old socialists, but now they're having to backtrack and backtrack and backtrack. What we've got to do is remember this. Okay, we've really got to remember this, and we've got to remember the catastrophic green agenda that has been with us for God knows how long now, 20 years, something like that. And this is how stupid it is. Just one more point, right?
Yeah, go on.
Everybody's talking about global boiling now, okay?
You know who started that? That was that idiot, the UN General Secretary, Antonio Guterres. He's the one to say we don't have to worry about global warming now. We have to worry about global boiling. And as I said at the time, well, Antonio, can you point to anywhere where something is boiling because of climate change? I don't think you can.
But the point is, absolutely, it's just nonsense. But the point is, only 50 years ago, we were talking about global freezing. Now,
that's right.
things can't change in such a short time, okay? So this is cherry-picking research. This is being focused on a particular kind of agenda, and they're paying for it now. And my God, they're really going to have to pay for it, because it's going to destroy them. It's going to destroy any shred of credibility that they had. And my God, they don't have many.
Yeah, they've got us. This government. Look, it was the Tories' fault. They sold British steel to the Chinese. Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister at the time. There is no greater green nutter than him. He's almost as bad as Miliband. So the Tories went down this net zero rabbit hole. We are now further down that rabbit hole, and we got to get out, because if we don't, this nation is doomed. These furnaces won't last long like this, and this is all down to this gormless green claptrap that Ed Miliband and Starmer and his stupid government is imposing on this nation. And unless they get real, this nation is in big trouble. So there we are, Philip, because next up we'll be talking about old Ed again, because there's nothing worse. There's only one thing worse than a climate change zealot, and that's a climate change zealot who's a massive hypocrite, and that's Ed.